Good morning. It is good to see each and every one of you here joining with us on the Sunday just before one of my favorite holidays, Thanksgiving. See, it's one of my favorite holidays, one of two actually. And I suppose the reason Thanksgiving is one of my favorite holidays is because I have very fond memories of Thanksgiving growing up as a child. My dad had two brothers and two sisters. And every year on Thanksgiving, growing up, we would all get together. Either at my grandparents' home or at one of my aunts or uncles and their homes. And cousins would be there, 10, 11 of us. Had a great time. And the things I remember about Thanksgiving that I found really neat was two things. Sitting around with my uncles and my other cousins watching football and eating food. Now, having said that, my second favorite holiday is New Year's. Primarily because there are two things I like: football and food. There's a theme that runs through my favorite holidays, just in case you're wondering. But that's just kind of the way it works. But every year, it was a day that included fun, it included laughter, it included games, and again, plenty of food. Let me begin our time together this morning by simply asking you, how many of you have cookbooks at your home? Yeah, I see a lot of hands going up. That's up to you. It's not my job to force you to use them. It's strictly your call. But here's the second question. How many of you have a cookbook entitled A Thanksgiving Cookbook, written by a Mrs. Garrity? The reason you probably do not have that cookbook is because it was a cookbook that she put together, written by her kindergarten class. Allow me to share just 3 entries, according to Mrs. Garrity's kindergarten class, about how one is to prepare turkey. According to Russell, you cut the turkey up and put it in the oven for 10 minutes on 300 degrees. You put gravy on it and you eat it. Alan, another student in Mrs. Garrity's kindergarten class, he believes this is the way it's done. First, you shoot the turkey, and then you cut it up. Then you put it in the oven and cook it for 10 minutes on 20 degrees. You put it on a plate, and then you eat it. Now, if you think these foolish boys don't know a thing about how to cook a turkey, let me simply suggest to you that the girls were, shall we say, more creative. Because there was a girl in Mrs. Garrity's class that apparently had worked out all of the details. Here are her instructions. Find a turkey and kill it. Cut it open. Put it in a pan. Pour milk in the pan. Put a little chicken with it. Put salsa on it. Take it out of the pan, put it on a board, cut it into little pieces, put it on a rack, put it in the oven for 7 minutes at 10 degrees. Take it out of the oven, put an eensy-weensy bit of sugar on it, put a little more salsa on it, and then you eat it. To her credit, Mrs. Garrity included a disclaimer at the beginning of the cookbook which read, quote, "The teacher will not be responsible for medical bills resulting from the use of her cookbook." And I suppose that we now can understand why that might have been. Here's the thing. While Thanksgiving is still a holiday that I look forward to, it is a day that now holds more meaning for me than it did as a child. And you might be asking yourself, in what way? Listen, Thanksgiving is a reminder of exactly how powerful gratitude can be. Because you see, it has the potential to bring out the best in humanity, to bring out humility. Thanksgiving has the ability to bring out humility and kindness and patience and love. Gratitude lifts our spirits if we will but simply take the time to count our blessings. But more than that, it also helps us carry our burdens. Thanksgiving inspires us to be good stewards. Thanksgiving has the potential to enable us to love the unlovely. I like the way Stephen Levine expressed it in his book entitled 1 Year to Live. Listen to what he says. Practicing gratitude increases our appreciation for life. It brings balance to those parts of self that have cultivated attachment to our suffering, causing us to feel victimized by life, making God's imagined dial tone all too appealing. Gratitude can turn dross into gold, hell into heaven, and death to life. It is a way of seeing and being, end quote. I can't help but wonder if Elton Trueblood had read some of that when he penned these words. He says, quote, gratitude is something that can never be overdone, end quote. Trueblood's right, isn't he? The more grateful we are, the more precious life is. And here's the thing. Each and every one of us have so much for which we can be grateful. We're blessed with family. We're blessed with friends. We're blessed with our faith and freedom. We're blessed with the resources and opportunities that we have to achieve our potential. Counting our blessings is no small task for those of us who have discerning eyes and discerning hearts. And my hope this morning is that we will allow the psalmist to help us count our blessings. If you have your Bibles, I invite you to turn to Psalm 100. Psalm 100. We're going to read it. If you haven't gotten there yet, you may be going, we're going to read an entire psalm. If you're there, you know it's only 5 verses, so it's not long. Psalm 100, which we are told, at least in the NIV, is a psalm for giving grateful praise. But I want you to listen to what the psalmist says. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before Him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is He who has made us, and we are His. We are His people, the sheep of His pasture. Enter into His gates with thanksgiving and His courts with praise. Give thanks to Him and praise His name. For the Lord is good, and His love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. Psalm 100 is a psalm that attracts me. Why? Because of its simplicity. Psalm 100 is extremely short, it is very plain, and it is positive. However, there are a couple of other reasons that I'm drawn to Psalm 100. And the first reason is this. It is a psalm that is inclusive. The psalm is a call to worship that was being sung by worshipers as they made their way to the temple. And as they made their way to the temple, singing this psalm, other worshipers would join them. Okay? Other pilgrims from other lands would join with them to blend their voices with those who were worshiping. In other words, people from all walks of life, people from all locations were encouraged to enter the temple because there is but one God and all are His children. That's what He says. Shout for joy to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come before Him with joyful songs. Know that the Lord is God. It is He who made us, and we are His. We are His people, the sheep of His pasture. See, it's a verse that appeals to me. It has for some time, because in my heart of hearts, I do not want people traveling alone in this world. I don't want them to feel as though they're somehow excluded from a family of faith. I mean, in all my years of ministry, what I have tried to do is to enlarge the table so that everyone can have a seat. To enlarge the table in order that everyone might enjoy warm fellowship. Enlarge the table so that everyone might find support and nourishment for their journey. The fact is, community and bridge building are extremely important to me. And it's the psalmist that has modeled that for me. And because of that, on this Sunday before Thanksgiving, I am thankful. Very thankful. If I can get the pages apart, we'll get to the other thing. Because there's a second reason this psalm appeals to me. Not only is it inclusive, but I also like the tone of the psalm. He says it's a cheerful psalm. It's a psalm that is filled with joy and praise. It is a hymn of thanksgiving. Let me ask you this question. As these worshipers are making their way to the temple, do you think they had amnesia? I mean, do you think that they had forgotten all the trials and tribulations and burdens that they had been through? I don't think so. Their trials and the burdens that they had faced were ever in the forefront of their minds. But so were their blessings. Because you see, they had much for which to be grateful. They had so much for which to be grateful. And they weren't going to let the cares of this world, the burdens of this world, the problems of this world, they were not going to allow those things to take away their joy or their voices. Look again at what he says in verse 4 and in verse 5, or in verse 5. 4 and 5. He says, enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him and praise his name. For the Lord is good and his love endures forever. His faithfulness continues through all generations. Listen, there are going to be and are those times when you and I must sing songs of joy and thanksgiving, even if we have tears in our eyes and pain in our hearts. Because you see, the expression of gratitude doesn't occur only after our problems have been solved. It doesn't occur only when our issues have been resolved. Gratitude also flows from broken hearts that need to be comforted. Gratitude also flows from the downtrodden spirits that simply need to be lifted up. As a matter of fact, the expression of thanksgiving is a part of the healing and encouraging process. After inviting his readers to go to the temple and lift their voices to God and to lift their voices in gratitude and praise, the psalmist reminds them of exactly why they need to do so. The very last statement, for the Lord is good, His love endures forever, and His faithfulness continues through all generations. Now, while I don't want to overlook God's goodness and faithfulness because they are equally important, I find myself being drawn to this verse and intrigued by the second part. It's the phrase, His love endures forever. That's the phrase that caught my attention. Because you see, I found that specific word endures just a little bit odd. Just a little bit odd. And I wondered to myself as I read that, what word could the psalmist have used that would have caused less of a surprise or even less suspicion? I suppose he could have said His love triumphs forever. That's a great word. Or he could have said His love prevails forever. Or His love lasts forever. I'm not sure any of those words would have grabbed my attention as did the word endures. So the question then becomes, why was this concept of enduring love even introduced? What was the message that the writer wanted to share? Having given that some thought, let me make this simple suggestion. Perhaps the writer of this psalm wanted to share was that God's love is going to be tested frequently, but it will never, never fail. In other words, God's going to love His children at their very best, but He's also going to love them at their very worst. God's going to love His children when they exceed their expectations or His expectations, but He's also going to love them when they disappoint Him. God's going to love His children when they draw near to Him, close to Him, but also when they rebel against Him. It's a psalm that teaches me something about love that I need to know, especially as we celebrate Thanksgiving. And it's this: love is going to be tested over and over, again and again. In fact, there are those times in which loving others will lead to worry. It will lead to confusion. It will lead to frustration. It will even lead to pain. Pain to the very point of tears. Because you see, inevitably, those individuals we love, well, they're going to hurt us. They're going to disappoint us. I mean, they may even rebel against us and reject us. The fact is, all of us who choose to love are going to be called to endure a lot. And with God's help, we will. But here's the thing. Through it all, God will never, ever quit loving. Through it all, God will never, ever allow us to quit hoping. God will never quit helping. And here's the thing. Nowhere is that more vividly seen than in the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Because you see, Jesus died with love on His lips. You remember what Jesus uttered from the cross? Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Jesus' love endured a lot, but it never ever failed. His love, the love of Jesus, outlasted every evil and overcame all resistance. And so must ours. And on this Sunday before Thanksgiving, we are reminded that we are to be grateful for God's love. We're to be reminded that we are to be grateful for God's love even on this day as we remember the price that was paid in God showing us His love.